Ever feel like you're running faster and faster, but still not getting anywhere? Like no matter how hard you hustle, something's missing. Focus, clarity, real progress? What if the problem isn't your ambition, but your habits? Welcome to Audiobook Page, where we break down life-changing books that help you unlock your full potential. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and transformative self-help books of all time, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This isn't just another productivity guide. This is a blueprint for personal leadership, a system that's helped CEOs, entrepreneurs, students, teachers, and even U.S. presidents live with more purpose and power. Because the truth is, success isn't something you chase, it's something you become. And Covey's 7 habits show you how. But who is Stephen Covey, and why should you trust him? Stephen Covey wasn't just a motivational speaker. He was a legendary thought leader in business, education, and personal development. Born in Utah in 1932, Covey was a devout family man, a Harvard MBA graduate, and a longtime professor at Brigham Young University. In 1989, he published The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and the world took notice. The book sold over 40 million copies, was translated into over 40 languages, and became a cornerstone in Fortune 500 boardrooms, military academies, classrooms, and homes across the United States. Time magazine named him one of the 25 most influential Americans. Why? Because Covey's message wasn't about quick hacks or shortcuts. He focused on something deeper, what he called the character ethic. Instead of teaching people how to appear successful, he taught them how to be successful from the inside out. His core philosophy: true effectiveness begins with who you are, not just what you do. So if you're ready to rethink the way you approach your time, your goals, your relationships, and ultimately, your life, you're in the right place. Let's explore the 7 timeless habits that can turn you from reactive to proactive, from scattered to focused, from busy to truly effective. Chapter 1. Be proactive. Imagine waking up each day with the deep, unshakable belief that you are not a product of your circumstances. You are a product of your decisions. That's the foundation of Habit 1. Be proactive. Stephen Covey opens this chapter by shattering one of the most common and limiting beliefs in modern life: the idea that we are controlled by our environment, our past, or our genetics. Too many people walk around thinking, "I can't help it. That's just the way I am." Or, "If only my boss, my spouse, my parents would change, then I'd be happier." Covey challenges all of that. The core principle behind Be Proactive is personal responsibility. The understanding that between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom to choose. That space is our greatest power. Covey introduces the concept of the circle of concern versus the circle of influence. The circle of concern includes all the things we worry about but cannot control: politics, the economy, other people's behavior. The circle of influence includes the things we can do something about: our thoughts, our words, our actions. Reactive people spend their energy focusing on the circle of concern. They blame, complain, and wait. Proactive people focus on their circle of influence. They take initiative. They act, instead of being acted upon. Covey uses a powerful example: Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist. Despite the unimaginable horrors of a Nazi concentration camp, Frankl realized that his captors could control his body, but not his mind, not his response. He still had the freedom to choose his attitude. That's the ultimate form of proactivity. Being proactive doesn't mean being aggressive or controlling. It means recognizing that you are the creative force of your own life. It means acting based on your values, not your moods. It means keeping commitments to yourself and others. It means not waiting for perfect conditions, but creating them. This chapter isn't just motivational, it's a direct challenge. Covey asks you to stop blaming your past, your parents, your circumstances. He calls you to own your life, your voice, your future. The emotion behind this habit is empowerment. It's the kind of feeling that rises when you stop saying, "I have to," and start saying, "I choose to." It's the shift from being a victim to becoming a leader, of your own mindset, of your own habits, and ultimately, of your destiny. So ask yourself, are you reacting to life, or are you creating it? Habit 1 is the gateway. If you don't master proactivity, none of the other habits will truly stick. But once you claim that power, the power to choose your response, you start to rewrite your life, one decision at a time. This is where effectiveness begins. Chapter 2. Begin with the end in mind. Imagine this. You walk into a funeral service. The room is quiet, filled with people you know. Your family is there, close friends, co-workers, maybe even someone you haven't seen in years. They're not just attending a service. They're attending your service. And one by one, they begin to speak. Now pause and ask yourself, what do you hope they say about you? This is how Stephen Covey begins Chapter 2, not with theory, but with a gut check. He's not trying to depress you. He's trying to wake you up. Because Habit 2, begin with the end in mind, is about much more than setting goals. It's about defining your true north. It's about living intentionally, with the end always in sight. It's about clarifying what matters most, before life, busyness, and distractions pull you in 100 different directions. The core principle of this chapter is vision. Not the kind you need glasses for, but the inner vision that gives your life direction, meaning, and consistency. Covey challenges us to stop living reactively, to stop chasing success in someone else's game. He says that too many people climb the ladder of achievement, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's the cost of not beginning with the end in mind. You can be busy and still be lost. This chapter is a call to slow down and ask, what kind of person do I want to become? What do I want my life to stand for? What will my legacy be? Covey introduces the powerful concept of a personal mission statement, a written document that reflects your deepest values, your life's purpose, and your guiding principles. It's like a constitution for your life, something that anchors you when the world gets chaotic, something that reminds you who you are and who you're trying to become. He doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all template. Why? Because your mission should be deeply personal. It's not what society expects. It's not what your boss, your parents, or your friends want for you. It's what you believe matters most. To help craft this, Covey invites us to reflect on the 4 fundamental roles most people hold in life. Personal. Who are you as an individual? Family. What kind of partner, parent, or sibling are you? Professional. What do you contribute to the world? Community. How do you serve others? By thinking through each of these areas, we start to uncover what a truly successful life looks like. Not one driven by status or comparison, but by purpose and alignment. Covey also draws a sharp contrast between the leadership versus management mindset. Management is about climbing the ladder efficiently. Leadership is about making sure the ladder is against the right wall. It's the difference between being busy and being effective. Without clear leadership from within, you might become a high achiever, but still feel empty. And this isn't just philosophical. Covey is incredibly practical. He encourages readers to revisit their mission statement often, to use it as a daily compass, to let it shape their calendar, their habits, their conversations, to build a life that reflects their values, not one that reacts to outside demands. He also touches on a concept deeply embedded in American culture, the power of choice. Beginning with the end in mind is a declaration that you are not a passive player in life. You are the author of your story. You don't drift toward meaning, you build it, one decision at a time. But it takes courage. It takes courage to question what you've been told is success. It takes courage to say no to good things so you can say yes to the right things. It takes courage to live intentionally in a world built for distraction. And yet, that's exactly what this chapter offers, the courage to live on purpose. By the end of Chapter 2, the question is no longer just, what do I want to achieve? It's, who do I want to be remembered as? When you begin with the end in mind, every day becomes more focused, decisions become easier, energy becomes more aligned, and life, instead of being a blur of to-dos, becomes a legacy in motion. Covey doesn't promise that this habit will eliminate all challenges, but he guarantees it will give your challenges context. It will give your wins meaning, and your losses perspective, because when you know where you're going, even the hard days feel worth it. So what's the end you want to live toward? Don't wait for a life crisis to figure it out. Don't let society define it for you. Begin today by beginning with the end in mind. That's not just habit 2. That's the foundation of a life well lived. Chapter 3. Put first things first. We all get the same 24 hours. But why is it that some people seem to get so much done, stay calm under pressure, and still have time for what matters, while others are constantly stressed, pulled in every direction, and always behind? Stephen Covey's answer is simple, yet powerful. It's not about how much time you have. It's about what you do with it. And more importantly, what you choose to put first. Habit 3, put first things first, is where your personal vision turns into day-to-day reality. If habit 1 is about taking control, and habit 2 is about knowing what matters, then habit 3 is about actually living it. It's where character meets discipline. It's where your priorities show up not on a whiteboard, but in your calendar. The core principle of this chapter is prioritized execution. It's the habit of organizing your life around your deepest values, not around the loudest distractions. It's leading yourself first, before you try to lead anyone else. Covey starts with a gut check. Are you managing your time, or is your time managing you? He challenges us to stop living on autopilot, reacting to whatever feels urgent and missing what's truly important. Because in today's world, the urgent is seductive. Emails, texts, deadlines, social media, they scream for your attention. But the important is quiet. Things like health, family, self-renewal, long-term goals, they whisper. And that's where most people get stuck. To make this real, Covey introduces the time management matrix, a 4-quadrant system that changes how you see every task. Quadrant 1, urgent and important. This is crisis mode. Emergencies, deadlines, last-minute problems. You can't avoid this zone completely, but if you live here, you burn out fast. Quadrant 2, not urgent but important. This is the sweet spot. Planning, relationship building, exercise, personal growth, preventing problems before they happen. This is where your best life is built, but it requires intentionality. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important. Phone calls, interruptions, some meetings. These things feel urgent but often waste time. They're deceptive and addictive. Quadrant 4, not urgent and not important. This is pure time wasting, binge watching, endless scrolling, trivial activities. These aren't bad in small doses, but living here leads to regret. Covey's goal? Shift your life into quadrant 2. Make space for what matters before it becomes a crisis. But here's the hard truth. You can't do that unless you learn to say no. Covey makes it clear. You can't be truly effective without disappointing some people. Every time you say yes to something meaningless, you're saying no to something that matters. You must have the courage to prioritize what is important but not urgent, even when it's uncomfortable. This chapter isn't about time hacks or productivity apps. It's about integrity, the ability to align your actions with your values. It's about learning to lead yourself by keeping the promises you make to yourself. And that's where the concept of the independent will comes in. Covey explains that independent will is your power to act based on self-awareness, vision, and conscience, rather than on impulse or external pressure. It's the force that allows you to wake up early and work on your goals, even when no one's watching. It's what helps you push through discomfort and delay gratification in service of something bigger. In other words, discipline is the bridge between intention and result. Covey also urges us to schedule our priorities, not just prioritize our schedule. He teaches a practical method called weekly planning, where you begin with your mission and values, identify your most important roles, parent, employee, partner, student, and then choose 1 to 2 quadrant 2 goals for each role each week. Once those goals are clear, you block out time for them before anything else gets booked. This kind of planning doesn't just make you more productive, it brings peace of mind. Because instead of always reacting to life, you're proactively creating it. He shares an unforgettable metaphor. Imagine filling a jar with rocks. If you put in the small pebbles and sand first, the big rocks won't fit. But if you put the big rocks in first, the truly important things, there will be room for the smaller stuff around them. Your life is the jar. The big rocks are your family, your health, your purpose, your growth. Put them in first. Always. One of the most emotional takeaways from this chapter is the reminder that your time is your life. Every minute you spend is a statement about what matters to you. Every yes and every no adds up to a legacy. And it's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. So what's stopping most people from living like this? Fear, discomfort, people-pleasing, the craving for urgency and approval. But Covey's message is clear. If you don't put first things first, someone else will. And you'll wake up one day wondering where your time, your health, and your dreams went. But it doesn't have to be that way. Habit 3 gives you permission to build your life around your values, not around pressure. To say no with confidence. To protect your energy. To choose quadrant 2 and trust that over time, small intentional actions will lead to massive, meaningful results. Because in the end, the life you want isn't built in a day. It's built in how you live each day. So, are you ready to stop being busy and start being effective? Then it's time to put first things first. Chapter 4, Think Win-Win. We've all been taught that in order for someone to win, someone else has to lose. That mindset is everywhere, in business negotiations, in relationships, in school, and even in our homes. We grow up thinking life is a zero-sum game, where if I get ahead, someone else has to fall behind. That's the competitive model most of the world runs on. But in Habit 4, Think Win-Win, Stephen Covey flips that belief on its head. He challenges us to imagine a world where everyone can win, where success is not a limited pie, but something we can expand together, where strong relationships, lasting success, and personal fulfillment come not from beating others, but from collaborating with them. At its core, Think Win-Win is a mindset. It's not a technique or a strategy, it's a character-based way of living. It means seeking mutual benefit in all human interactions. It means having the courage to stand for your own needs and values, while also showing deep respect for others. It's not about being nice, and it's not about being a pushover. It's about building trust, partnership, and synergy, where the outcome is better for everyone involved. Covey starts the chapter by explaining the 6 paradigms of human interaction. 1. Win/win. This is the ideal. It's based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. Both parties walk away feeling valued and satisfied. 2. Win/lose. This is the authoritarian, competitive model. One person wins at the expense of another. It's the I get my way, you don't approach, and it destroys relationships over time. 3. Lose/win. This is the doormat mentality. You give in to keep the peace, even when it costs your self-respect. It might look kind, but it breeds resentment and weakness. 4. Lose/lose. When 2 stubborn people refuse to give in, both lose. This is the mindset of revenge, bitterness, and mutual destruction. 5. Win. This one's sneaky. It looks harmless, but it's selfish. You don't care if others lose as long as you get what you want. It's short-sighted and unsustainable. 6. Win/win or no deal. This is true maturity. If we can't both win, we walk away. This removes manipulation and sets the stage for authentic negotiation. Covey makes a powerful point here. Win/win isn't about compromise. It's about finding the third alternative, the solution that's better than what either side initially wanted. It's not your way. It's not my way. It's a better way. But to live this way, you need a deep foundation of character. Covey says the win/win mindset is built on 3 core character traits. 1. Integrity. You have to know what you stand for and stick to it. You can't go for win/win if you're willing to betray your own values. Integrity gives your actions weight. 2. Maturity. Maturity is the balance between courage and consideration. You're strong enough to express your own needs, but empathetic enough to understand others. It's the ultimate social power. 3. Abundance mentality. This is the belief that there's more than enough success, love, respect, and opportunity to go around. People with a scarcity mindset hoard. People with abundance share, and everyone grows. Covey stresses that thinking win/win isn't just about what happens in boardrooms or business deals. It's just as critical in families, friendships, and marriages. It's the difference between power struggles and partnerships. He tells the story of two kids fighting over the last orange. One wants to make juice. The other needs the peel for baking. If they split the orange in half, nobody wins. But when they seek to understand, they realize they can both have exactly what they need, without compromise. This is what Covey means by synergy and creative cooperation. Win/win is about listening first, seeking first to understand, trusting that there's always a better answer when you work together. Of course, win/win doesn't work in every situation. If you're dealing with someone who refuses to cooperate or who always chooses win/lose, you may need to walk away. That's why Covey includes win/win or no deal, a powerful option that protects your integrity and prevents toxic compromise. But when two people or organizations truly commit to win/win, they unlock something extraordinary: trust. And trust is the foundation of every high-functioning team, family, or company. When people feel safe, when they know they won't be taken advantage of, they open up, they share ideas, they go the extra mile. This kind of environment can only be built by people who live the win/win principle. Covey makes it clear, this isn't always easy. It takes patience, creativity, and emotional strength. It means confronting your own pride, fear, and desire to control. It means letting go of the idea that success comes from domination. But in return, you get relationships that last, teams that thrive, families that grow closer, a life filled not with conflict and comparison, but with collaboration and contribution. So how do you start? Look for the third alternative instead of pushing your own agenda. Practice empathy. Really listen before you try to be understood. Affirm others' worth. Value people even when you disagree. Speak your truth with kindness and strength. And when it's not possible to win together, walk away with your self-respect intact. Because at the end of the day, true success isn't about getting your way. It's about building a life where everyone rises together. That's the heart of Habit 4. Think win-win, a habit that can transform not just how you negotiate deals, but how you live, lead, and love. Chapter 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Have you ever been in a conversation where you knew the other person wasn't really listening, just waiting for their turn to talk? Or worse, they interrupted you, offered advice you didn't ask for, or assumed they already understood your situation? Chances are, you left that conversation feeling frustrated, dismissed, or just plain invisible. That's exactly what Stephen Covey tackles in Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This habit is a complete game changer, not just for communication, but for connection. It's about slowing down your instinct to react, argue, fix, or speak, and learning to genuinely listen first. Most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. We filter everything through our own experiences, biases, and agendas. It's not always malicious. We're wired that way. But the result is broken communication, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities. Covey's core principle here is simple but powerful: empathic listening. That means listening not just with your ears, but with your eyes, your heart, and your full attention. It's about truly entering the other person's world, feeling what they feel, and seeing what they see, without judgment, interruption, or the urge to fix things right away. Covey contrasts empathic listening with 4 common, ineffective types of listening. Evaluating. You judge what the person says and decide whether you agree or disagree. Probing. You ask questions from your frame of reference, not theirs. Advising. You rush in with solutions before they've even finished explaining. Interpreting. You try to figure out their motives based on your own lens. These approaches don't build trust. They shut people down. But when you truly seek to understand first, something amazing happens. You create psychological air. People feel heard, seen, valued. And when someone feels understood, they naturally become more open to hearing you out in return. Covey uses the metaphor of emotional deposits. Just like you make deposits in a bank, every time you listen empathically, you make deposits in someone's emotional bank account. You earn trust. You strengthen the relationship. And that trust becomes the foundation for influence, collaboration, and real connection. He writes, "You can't influence someone who doesn't feel understood." It's one of the most overlooked truths in leadership, parenting, business, and even marriage. You can't just demand understanding. You have to earn it first. And here's where it gets even more practical. Covey outlines 5 levels of listening, but only the 5th is truly effective. Ignoring, not listening at all. Distracted, checked out. Pretending, nodding and saying, uh-huh, but not really paying attention. Selective listening, hearing only what you want to hear. Attentive listening, paying attention, but still from your own frame of reference. Empathic listening, fully engaging with the speaker's experience, without inserting your own. Empathic listening requires you to get out of your own head. It takes patience, humility, and emotional strength. But it's worth it, because when people feel safe and understood, they open up, they relax, they trust, and that trust leads to real problem solving and mutual respect. Covey emphasizes that this habit is especially critical in high-stakes, emotionally charged conversations. Think of arguments with your spouse, difficult feedback with an employee, conflict with a child or a business partner. In those moments, your ability to listen first, without defending or reacting, can literally determine the future of that relationship. So how do you do empathic listening? It's not about parroting the other person's words. It's about reflecting their feelings and meanings. For example, if someone says, "I'm sick of my boss micromanaging me," you don't respond with, "You should talk to HR," or "just quit." Instead, you might say, "Sounds like you're feeling frustrated and not trusted." That simple reflection, accurate, respectful, and without agenda, tells the speaker, "I see you. I hear you. I care." And once they feel understood, they're far more likely to engage in a meaningful dialogue. Now they're ready to hear you. This brings us to the second half of the habit, then to be understood. After you've listened empathically and truly understood the other person, then you can present your own thoughts, feelings, or solutions, but in a way that respects their world. Covey describes this as the balance between ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos, your personal credibility and integrity. People listen to those they trust. Pathos, your emotional alignment with the other person. This is where empathy lives. Logos, the logic and reasoning of your message. Most people jump straight to logos, facts, arguments, opinions, without establishing trust or empathy. But Covey flips the order. First connect emotionally, then explain logically. This model is not just effective, it's transformational. Whether you're trying to negotiate a business deal, discipline a teenager, resolve a marital conflict, or collaborate with a team, Habit 5 gives you the blueprint for genuine connection. It teaches you to drop your ego and your need to control the conversation, and instead, build bridges, the kind of bridges that carry long-term impact. Because at the end of the day, people don't remember your clever words. They remember how you made them feel. And when you make someone feel truly heard, you give them a gift that's rare, powerful, and unforgettable. So the next time you're in a conversation, pause. Stop trying to be right. Stop rehearsing your reply. And instead, do something radical. Just listen. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's habit 5. And it's one of the most human, powerful habits you can ever practice. Chapter 6, Synergize. Imagine sitting in a meeting where every voice matters. Disagreements don't create tension, they spark creativity. People don't compete, they collaborate. And when the session ends, you walk away with a solution no one could have come up with alone. That's synergy in action. In Habit 6, Synergize, Stephen Covey invites us to unlock one of the most underused and misunderstood forces in human interaction: creative cooperation. Synergy isn't just working together. It's not teamwork for the sake of politeness. It's a dynamic process where differences are valued, strengths are amplified, and new ideas emerge that are greater than the sum of their parts. At its core, synergy is about producing third alternatives. Not your way, not my way, but a better way we create together. It's about recognizing that diversity of perspective is not a threat, but a treasure. Covey begins the chapter with a crucial truth. Most people are conditioned to tolerate differences, not embrace them. We're taught to protect our point of view, defend our position, and avoid conflict. But this mindset kills creativity. It prevents growth. It turns conversations into battlegrounds instead of building bridges. To synergize, we have to make a radical shift, from seeing others as obstacles to seeing them as partners, from fearing different opinions to welcoming them, from competing to co-creating. Covey shares that synergy lives in the space between respect and cooperation. It's not about giving in or compromising. In fact, compromise is often the lazy alternative to synergy. Compromise says, let's both lose a little so we can move on. Synergy says, let's both win by discovering something neither of us could see alone. But synergy doesn't happen by accident. It requires a foundation of trust, open communication, and a willingness to be influenced. That's why Covey places this habit after seek first to understand, then to be understood. You can't synergize with someone if you haven't first built mutual understanding and respect. One of the most powerful images Covey uses is from nature. He describes how two different species of trees, when grown close together, can actually intertwine their roots underground. Over time, they become stronger together than either one could be alone. That's synergy. He also offers real-world examples, like teams of scientists or creative professionals who, by embracing tension and difference, produced breakthroughs that changed industries. It's often the friction between opposing ideas that creates the spark for innovation. Covey breaks synergy down into a process. 1. Start with differences. Recognize and even celebrate differences in personality, experience, culture, and opinion. Instead of resisting them, see them as raw material for a better solution. 2. Practice empathic communication. Listen deeply. Seek to truly understand the other person. Don't interrupt, judge, or rush in with your own view. Make them feel heard and valued. 3. Be open to influence. Let go of the need to control the outcome. Be humble enough to admit your idea might not be the best, or that someone else might see what you don't. 4. Look for the third alternative. Stay in the conversation long enough to discover a new solution that neither side initially imagined. This takes patience, trust, and a belief that better is possible together. Covey also emphasizes that synergy doesn't mean everyone always agrees. In fact, synergy thrives in constructive disagreement. When people feel safe to disagree respectfully, they explore deeper, challenge assumptions, and avoid groupthink. That's why diverse teams, when managed well, often outperform homogeneous ones. Different backgrounds bring different insights, and when those differences are harnessed, not silenced, they lead to better decisions, richer creativity, and stronger relationships. But let's be clear, synergy is not always easy. It requires emotional maturity. You have to be secure enough in yourself to listen without defensiveness. You have to have enough courage to be vulnerable, enough confidence to admit you don't have all the answers, and enough curiosity to wonder what you're missing. Covey writes, valuing differences is the essence of synergy, the mental, the emotional, the psychological differences between people. In families, synergy might look like a parent learning from their child's point of view instead of lecturing. In business, it might mean inviting dissenting opinions and treating them as a source of strength. In friendships, it means you don't always have to be right. You have to be real. And when synergy becomes a way of life, you start seeing the world differently. You stop seeing others as rivals or obstacles. You stop viewing every conversation as a debate to win. You begin to approach life with curiosity, not control, with openness, not fear. You begin to ask, what could we create together? And that question, asked honestly and often, can transform your work, your relationships, your leadership, and your life. The core principle of Habit 6, Synergize, is this. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When people with different perspectives come together in a spirit of respect and creativity, they can build something neither could build alone. It's not just about solving problems. It's about expanding possibility, creating breakthroughs, and most of all, deepening human connection. So how do you start living this habit? Begin by noticing differences instead of judging them. Practice empathic listening. Seek first to understand. Stay in conversations long enough to find the third alternative. Invite collaboration, even when you think you already know the answer. Choose curiosity over control. Because in a world driven by competition and conflict, synergy is a radical act. It's a habit of humility, trust, and hope. And when we learn to synergize, not just with our teams, but with our families, communities, and even those we disagree with, we don't just become more effective. We become more human. Chapter 7. Sharpen the Saw. Imagine a lumberjack working tirelessly to cut down a thick tree with a dull saw. He's sweating, frustrated, and moving slowly. Someone walks by and says, "Why don't you stop and sharpen your saw?" But the lumberjack shakes his head and replies, "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing." It sounds foolish when we hear it, doesn't it? But most of us live our lives exactly like that. We hustle, we grind, we pour ourselves into work, responsibilities, goals, and endless to-do lists, often at the expense of our own well-being. And in the process, we wear ourselves down physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. We get depleted, but we keep going, hoping productivity will somehow outrun burnout. Stephen Covey's Habit 7, Sharpen the Saw, is the antidote to that broken cycle. This habit is about renewal. It's the practice of preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, yourself. Without self-renewal, the other 6 habits will eventually lose their power. You'll burn out. Your creativity will stall. Your relationships will suffer. Your effectiveness will decline. So what does it really mean to sharpen the saw? Covey explains it through 4 key dimensions of life: physical, mental, emotional/social, and spiritual. To be truly effective, we need to renew ourselves in all 4 areas, regularly and intentionally. 1. Physical renewal, caring for the body. This is the most visible dimension, but often the most neglected. Physical renewal includes exercise, nutrition, rest, and stress management. When we move our bodies regularly, eat nourishing food, and get quality sleep, we build stamina. We boost our energy. We think more clearly. We handle stress better. Covey doesn't suggest extreme workouts or crash diets. Just simple, sustainable habits that honor your body as the instrument of your life's work. Because if your body breaks down, everything else crumbles with it. 2. Mental renewal, feeding the mind. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and endless scrolling, mental renewal is more important than ever. Covey encourages us to engage in reading, writing, learning, and critical thinking. Mental renewal is about challenging our minds, expanding our knowledge, and stretching our imagination. It's also about stepping back from constant entertainment and choosing growth. That might mean reading a thoughtful book, learning a new skill, journaling, or taking time to reflect. Sharpening the saw mentally keeps you sharp, adaptable, and creative. It strengthens your capacity to make wise decisions and solve real-world problems. 3. Emotional/social renewal, strengthening relationships. This dimension is about empathy, connection, and emotional intelligence. It's about how we relate to others and to ourselves. Covey teaches that our emotional health is deeply tied to the quality of our relationships. When we invest in meaningful connections, we build emotional reserves. When we practice active listening, honesty, and kindness, we not only deepen trust, we also grow ourselves. It's also about self-care, learning to manage our emotions, taking time to rest and laugh, setting boundaries, asking for help, celebrating joy. These practices refill our emotional tank so we can face challenges without breaking. You can't pour from an empty cup. Emotional renewal fills that cup back up. 4. Spiritual renewal, reconnecting with purpose. This is the deepest dimension. Spiritual renewal is not necessarily religious. It's about meaning, values, integrity, and inner peace. Covey defines spiritual renewal as engaging in activities that connect us to something larger than ourselves. That could mean prayer, meditation, time in nature, music, reflection, or service to others. It's about stepping back from the noise of the world to realign with your core values. It's asking, what kind of person am I becoming? Am I living according to what truly matters? When we renew ourselves spiritually, we strengthen our ability to lead, to forgive, to persevere, and to love. We tap into a reservoir of strength that outlasts circumstances. The core principle, balanced self-renewal, creates sustainable effectiveness. At the heart of Habit 7 is the truth that you cannot be effective in the long run if you neglect your own renewal. You might win short-term, but you'll lose long-term, either through burnout, health problems, broken relationships, or a loss of purpose. Covey insists that sharpening the saw is not selfish, it's essential. It's the single habit that empowers all the others. When you exercise, your energy increases. When you read, your mind sharpens. When you spend time with loved ones, your heart opens. When you meditate or reflect, your sense of direction deepens. These moments of renewal don't slow you down. They speed you up by restoring your capacity to perform at your best. In fact, Covey says sharpening the saw should be a regular, proactive discipline, not just something you do when you're already exhausted. It's preventive maintenance for the human soul. He also emphasizes that sharpening the saw is personal. What renews you might not renew someone else. The key is to find your rhythm. Create rituals. Make time for the things that fill you back up before you're running on empty. Living the habit, a lifestyle, not a to-do. Sharpening the saw isn't about perfection. It's about progress, consistency, and intentional living. Even 20 to 30 minutes a day invested in one of these 4 dimensions can make a massive difference over time. Covey shares stories of executives, parents, students, and entrepreneurs who transformed their lives, not through massive overhauls, but through steady, daily renewal. It's about choosing to live fully rather than living on fumes. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you sharpen the saw, the more present, peaceful, and effective you become, not just in your goals, but in your relationships and sense of joy. Because the real goal of success isn't just achievement, it's wholeness. So pause, reflect. Where's your saw getting dull? And what would it look like to sharpen it? Today, this week, this year. Because your life isn't a machine to run into the ground. It's a masterpiece in the making, but only if you take care of the artist. That's Habit 7, sharpen the saw, the habit that fuels every other habit and helps you create a life of sustainable, authentic, deeply rooted effectiveness. Conclusion, the 7 habits that transform lives. As we close the final chapter of the 7 habits of highly effective people, one thing becomes clear. This book isn't just a guide to productivity or success. It's a blueprint for personal greatness, a quiet revolution, a lifelong process of becoming someone you're proud of when no one's watching. Stephen Covey didn't just hand us habits. He gave us a mirror. He invited us to take responsibility for our choices, reconnect with our purpose, and live with integrity, not just ambition. Each habit builds upon the last, taking us from dependence to independence, and finally, to interdependence, where the greatest human achievements are born. Whether it's being proactive, beginning with the end in mind, or putting first things first, these habits help us lead our lives instead of reacting to them. With Think Win-Win and Seek First to Understand, we learn how to connect, communicate, and lead with empathy. Synergize teaches us that our differences are not weaknesses, but doorways to innovation. And finally, Sharpen the Saw reminds us to pause, renew, and never stop growing. These are not habits for a season. They're disciplines for a lifetime. So now, the question is not just did you understand the 7 habits, but will you live them? Will you take these principles and apply them to your work, your relationships, your goals, and your everyday choices? If this summary inspired you, made you reflect, or gave you a fresh perspective, let's keep the momentum going. Please like this video to show your support, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Audiobook Page for more life-changing book summaries that speak to your goals, your growth, and your journey. Thank you for joining us. Keep learning, keep leading, and above all, keep becoming the most effective version of yourself. We'll see you in the next video.